Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second renewable energy webinar. Today, we're going to be demonstrating how we can streamline the design and construction of renewable energy projects using the Esri platform. My name is Jeff Allen. I'm going to be your host today for the webinar, and I'll be joined today by my colleagues, Alessandra Milliken, who's the Renewable Energy Account Industry Manager, and Scott Newlis, who's the Renewable Energy Solution Engineer. Before we get started, let me take you through a couple of logistics. We are going to be recording today's webinar and making that available after the session, so don't worry about taking notes. You can see on the logistics panel here, you can ask questions. I'm going to be monitoring those, and we'll be answering the questions that come in at the end. If there's any long or detailed questions, we'll go ahead and record those and send out an FAQ in a couple of days that have a more detailed answer to them. But for now, you can switch between your telephone and your computer audio speakers. You can adjust your view to your full screen. But with that being said, I'll welcome Alessandra and turn it over to her. Alessandra?
Awesome, thanks Jeff, and thanks everyone for joining us today. If you were able to join the webinar we presented earlier this year, welcome back. And if this is your first time joining us or you're catching this online, don't worry because this slide is a crash course through what we covered last. So in our last webinar, we talked about how the Esri technology can really help the site suitability analysis process, specifically how to streamline understanding what potential project sites have the best potential for your wind or solar portfolio, how to utilize 3D space by performing visual impact assessments, and how to deliver project staff the information they need, no matter where they are. So we really create these webinars based on what you, our power users, use the Esri technology to accomplish every single day. So we've had so many requests to cover the design and construction process, which is what we will be demonstrating today. So over the next 30 minutes, we're going to review how you can use your Esri technology to really leverage that site suitability analysis information we did in the last webinar, maximize project site potentials in your wind or solar portfolio. Last webinar was a little more wind leaning. This one will be a little more solar leaning, but as always, these workflows can be interchanged. How to optimize your designs to gain operational efficiency, how to unlock the power of GIS directly inside your Autodesk products, and how to support stakeholders, break down silos, and enable efficient collaboration between all of your teams. So at this point in the renewable energy lifecycle, again with design and construction, we have our area of interest that we want to work with, and we start that tedious process of emailing shapefiles, letting the engineers and drafters or third-party contractors run with the design, and it can be a really painful process. In 2017, there was a big partnership announced. If you don't recognize at least one in this picture, you're probably in the wrong webinar. Hopefully you do. But you know, all of us have an engineering department or a contractor, which means they're probably using some sort of Autodesk product, such as AutoCAD, Civil 3D, or Revit. So again, in 2017, a huge partnership was announced between Esri and Autodesk. So what does this mean for us as GIS users? Well, this means we no longer need to send those shapefiles back and forth. Instead, we can give them the ability to view, edit, or publish data from within their Autodesk products. So this means they can have that controlled access to the geographic system of record and more specifically the content that they are in charge of. In addition, this gives your entire organization access to all of that BIM data and all of the content again. So if your organization or your contractors are using those Autodesk products now, those users of Civil 3D, InfraWorks, or AutoCAD can access ArcGIS Online or Enterprise, allowing data and information to seamlessly flow between these platforms. So again, you can support your constituents, break down silos, and enable efficient collaboration. So with that, let's get to the fun part. Time to hand it off to Scott.
Thank you, Alessandra, and welcome everyone today. We're going to start here in ArcGIS Online by looking at an existing solar plant. So for today's workflow, we're going to kind of work with an existing plant, look at adding a new location within this plant, but this could easily be kind of a greenfield project as well. So this particular project was constructed a few years ago to provide energy to a nearby town, but due to recent increases in population, that demand for electricity has grown. So to meet this demand, our project development group has decided to expand the overall capacity of this particular plant. So this expansion is going to include really a new phase of solar panels and arrays here in this open area adjacent to this existing array. And our engineering group is going to help us design the layout of these new panels. So we all know that engineering or project design is typically done outside of GIS. Engineers and drafters usually rely on specialized programs to create detailed designs. For this project, our engineering group will use AutoCAD to design the layout of our solar panels. Here on the screen.
And just to interject, so for those of you, I don't want anybody to panic. This isn't what ArcGIS Pro looks like. So hopefully no one was scrambling to get those ArcGIS Pro tutorials, even though we would love for you to get on ArcGIS Pro. This is AutoCAD that Scott is demonstrating. And the reason why I'm making this joke and making a point is that last time I checked, all of us work for Esri, and this is pretty historic for us that this is one of the first times that Scott here will be demonstrating an Autodesk product. So huge moment, just wanted to call to that. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thank you. And hopefully we can keep the bar low. If I mess anything up, people know that I'm not a professional here. So, so what I'm looking at here in AutoCAD is a solar panel model that was designed to the exact specifications for our new project. And this is really where AutoCAD excels, you know, in this design and kind of drafting space. But a lot of these designs are created in kind of these local coordinate systems that are very highly accurate, but and sometimes disconnected from physical locations in the real world. So in order to really create a precise layout, it can be beneficial to have that point of reference from the built environment. And a lot of times, data around that built environment is stored in GIS. So if we were just looking at that map that we just had pulled up on the screen, all of those solar panel locations, maybe information about our collection system, that's all going to be stored in GIS. So AutoCAD and ArcGIS have a lot of similar tools. So like Alessandra mentioned, right, this looks very similar actually to Pro with the whole tab and layout designs. But they're both highly specialized in their own areas. So ArcGIS is great at managing spatial data, we all know this, while AutoCAD is really great for drafting and designing. And historically, as Alessandra just alluded to, sharing data between GIS and CAD has been a little challenging. There's always been some level of integration, you know, being able to open shape files in AutoCAD or being able to bring drawing files into ArcGIS, but it hasn't always been very efficient. Usually some type of ETL processes are used to move data from one environment to the other, which can result in maybe duplication of records, generalization of information, or maybe just a lot of wasted time kind of moving that data. So all of this has now changed with this new or recently renewed, I guess, partnership with Autodesk and Esri. So up here, what I've got loaded into AutoCAD is actually the new ArcGIS for AutoCAD plugin. And this is a free tool that brings the power of GIS inside of AutoCAD and other Autodesk applications. This tool is created and maintained by Esri, and it allows engineers and drafters to work with the GIS data natively in their environment of choice and removes the need to run timely and repetitive ETL processes. So GIS professionals can still own and manage all of that good spatial data, but can share it seamlessly with engineers and drafters. So with the plugin, what I'm going to do is open up a new drawing here, and I'm going to add some data. And I can do that here using our Add Data button, and I get this nifty little window that pops up. And the first thing I'm going to do is sign in. Now, we have support for both ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Enterprise, so it doesn't really matter which environment you're using, both are supported. Today, I'm going to be using ArcGIS Online, so I'll go ahead and sign in with my credentials here. And once I do that, I get access to all of our organizational content. So anything that I've published to ArcGIS Online, I can now see as an item owner. Also, any of my group content or organizational content is now free for me to browse. So I happen to know data about this existing project is already loaded in here. And specifically what I'm interested in is the data here for our existing arrays. So I'm going to go ahead and load that into our AutoCAD drawing, and it knows exactly where it's placed in the real world, right? It's got that coordinate system associated with it. So for additional reference, I'm just going to go ahead and add in some imagery as well. So this is just an imagery base map. I'm going to grab that from the Living Atlas. So any additional third-party content that you have outside of your organization, maybe in the Living Atlas, you can bring that into AutoCAD as well. And for now, that's good. I'll just add those 2 layers. So now here within AutoCAD, I have a very familiar looking map, right? This is something that I may look at in ArcGIS Online or in Pro, but I get that very familiar look with the Esri base map and then our GIS feature layer as well. And to make that a little more visible, I'll just come in here and update the color so we can see those array outlines pretty well. All right, there they all are. So with this plugin here, what I can also do is open up our contents pane. And this allows me to manage kind of all of my layers here within AutoCAD that are coming from GIS. So for instance, I have this web feature layer that is representing my arrays. I can actually expand this and I can do things like look at the attributes of these features, identify features, search for features, and I can actually edit features as well. And I'll get to that here in a little bit, but that's a very exciting new capability that really helps out the users here within AutoCAD. So once I've got all this content added to my map, what I really want to do is bring this design, this solar panel model that we've created here in CAD into this real world space. And I'm going to use all of my GIS content to know exactly where to locate this with that point of reference. So the first thing I'm going to do is zoom in here to one of these existing panels. And I happen to know that this new project or this new phase of panels is gonna come in right about in here, but there's specific setback distances that we have to adhere to. So I want to be able to locate this at the precisely the right location. And to do that, I'm just going to use this existing feature to create a reference feature that allows me to insert that solar panel at the right location. So I'm just going to create kind of a copy of this existing feature, and then I'm going to move it to the exact location that I need it. In this case, this distance from this existing panel to our new panels is going to be about 10 meters. That'll give us plenty of room during the construction and kind of installation phase. So I can go ahead and specify that distance there. And now I've got this point of insertion that I can now use to insert my model that I just designed. So to do that, I'll just type in another command here. I'm going to browse to that CAD drawing that we just looked at. And I'm just going to choose to insert it at my point of reference down here. So now I know this is located in the exact real world right location. And what I'm going to do real quick is just update the kind of bounding box, this GIS feature here that is used to show the boundary of this particular panel. Now that we've got that all taken care of, I can see that first panel location kind of here in this map. So I still have all of this extra space I need to fill up. And using the measurements and the dimensions that we have come up with, I need to essentially create more layouts like this to fill up this space. So to do that, I can use some of our other tools as well. If I turn this layer back on, what I can do is create a copy of this particular feature. I'm going to choose a reference point. I'm going to choose how many copies I want to create. In this case, I know there's about 12 that are going to fit on this particular row. And then I'm going to specify a distance between them. So this is going to be about 8-meter distance from the front of one solar panel to the front of the one behind it. So I'll go ahead and specify that there. Now we've got our layout, and we need to duplicate that for our second row up here. So what I'm going to do is just highlight all of these. I'll use that same mirror command, come in here, create these features, and then I can come in here and move these features as well. So they'll be in line with the second row of these existing solar panels. Specify one more point, and this will be about 4 meters from that row. Now we've got all of our existing reference point locations. So if I turn on our first solar panel that we inserted, we can go ahead and insert the rest of them. And I've already got another drawing that I made just to make this go a little faster, but the idea would be the same as that first one, right? We pick what point we want to insert, and then now we've got our entire solar panel layout created using this nifty little model that we built here in AutoCAD. So with this layout now created, I can do some cool things like zoom around and kind of see this in a 3D space, and I can really see how my models look and interact with in the real world here. But I can also see, if I turn these solar panels off, that I actually created some data within my GIS layer as well. So all of these red boxes are actually new features that I added to that feature layer that I added here to my drawing from our connected ArcGIS Online organization. And I can open up the attribute pane of this particular feature layer, and I can see all of those new additions that have been made. So I got 24 new features over here on the map, and I've got 24 features located over here in my attribute pane as well. So in addition to being able to create and modify geometry of our GIS layers, I can also modify the attributes as well. So all of these new features inherited the attributes of that initial feature that I created or copied it from, but I could go in here and change the name of these panels if I know what that's going to be, or update that information accordingly. We also see the status field with the value that's been added. So this has been added by our GIS and is used to track kind of the current status of these solar panels. So since we're still in CAD in the design phase, all of these are going to be not surveyed or staked, but still in that plan phase. So that may be something that the GIS team updates on their end, but it could also be something that that engineer, that designer here in AutoCAD can choose to update as well. And so all of this content that I've made so far has not been synced back to my ArcGIS Online organization. So all of these edits are maintained in memory of AutoCAD. So if I have different design scenarios or different iterations that I need to run through, I can do all of that without overriding or adding data to that maybe production GIS layer that everyone else is looking at within my organization. Once I am ready to commit those changes, I've got this little synchronize all button up here that I can choose to click. And this will give me a good summary of any changes that have been made here within AutoCAD. So I can see I've got 24 additions to this arrays feature layer that represents each of these 24 features, but it can also track any updates or any deletions that I made to those existing features that were already in that layer. So I can go ahead and choose to synchronize this, and I'm able to do this because I have creator privileges within my my ArcGIS Online organization, or I have the ability to at least edit data. And seamlessly in the background, what that actually did was sync that data back up to our ArcGIS Online organization. Now that our design is complete, we can kind of pass this back off to the GIS team to review the content that's been added here within AutoCAD. So to do that, I can come over here and open up ArcGIS Pro. I've got that same map that we were just looking at in AutoCAD, and I've got some additional layers here added. So I've got my arrays, I've got my collection system, I've also got some infrastructure data. But what I'm doing is I'm connecting to all of these layers from my ArcGIS Online or my enterprise portal. And so if I come in here and refresh this layer, if we give it some time to load, I can actually see all those new features that were just added in AutoCAD seamlessly. There's no need to edit or extract data from AutoCAD, import it into GIS. All of that data that was added by that user in AutoCAD is now readily available for me to use here within GIS. And the same is true in the other way too. If I made a modification here in GIS and I wanted to push that over to my CAD user, then they would be able to sync those changes that have been made outside of that application. And we'll show that here in a little bit as well. So I've got all of my new existing array locations, just using some of our GIS tools. I can come in here, I can select these out. And what I want to do is open up our attribute table for these new features. Resize this a little bit. And I can go to just my highlighted features here, and I can see that same survey status, or that same feature status that I was looking at over in AutoCAD. Like I said, we probably want to change this to the actual status instead of what was inherited from that first feature. And we can do that pretty easily using something like a field calculator, right? So if I've got all my features highlighted, I can come in here and just type a very simple expression that's going to update all of these values to that, that correct status value. And once that's done, we can see that information then update here. So I've got my data coming out of CAD. I've been able to kind of review and modify it here within ArcGIS. And now it's kind of ready to be taken out to the field to either be staked by our construction or our surveying crews, or at least being taken out and have some initial kind of visualization done while they're out in the field. So real quick, another cool thing we can do while we're in Pro, so we can take that that very precise model that was generated in CAD and actually import that as a file into ArcGIS Pro as well for some enhanced visualization. So here, if I turn this off real quick, I've got all of the solar panel designs. Now we're in a 3D scene instead of a 2D map. And I can toggle on one of the layers included in that DWG file. This happens to be those 3D models that we were just looking at. And as I go into a 3D space, we can now have that same kind of 3D visualization capability that we had in AutoCAD here within Pro. So now we can review the dimensions of our solar panels, or we can create kind of a cool 3D map and use that for visualization, or maybe some type of analysis if we need to do some of that work for our other workflows. But that's also a cool capability, being able to not only get that seamless data coming in, but also import the actual 3D models that we are working with. So like I said, now we're ready to kind of go out into the field and do some initial preliminary staking or some construction work. And to do that, we can introduce some of our field applications that might help us in some of these workflows. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my tablet here and show you some of our data collection capabilities. So during project construction, there might be a myriad of issues that arise that can impact construction activities and affect progress. Some of these issues can include security, health, and safety risks, or even environmental concerns. So having a way to track these issues as they arise is very important, so the appropriate corrective action can be taken in a timely manner. This will help ensure both the health and safety of the workers and the security of the construction site. So what we're looking at here on the screen is ArcGIS Quick Capture, which is a rapid data collection application new to the ArcGIS platform. And this is one of the applications we did not show in our first webinar. So Quick Capture is all about easy data collection, and it's got a very simple interface. If I open up my project here, I can see essentially two things. I've got a map here on the right, and I've got essentially big buttons on the left. So like I said, Quick Capture is very simple. For each button I see, that corresponds to a specific type of observation. And when I click that button, data is collected. So on the map here, what I'm doing is I'm simulating my location. Maybe I'm a construction foreman or someone out in the field. I'm driving around the project site, and I notice that there's a damaged silt fence at that particular location, or maybe there's a slip, trip, fall risk, or some type of exposed chemicals. As I click each of these buttons, information is captured at that exact location that I clicked that button. And the data, although I'm simulating my location here on the map, the location is actually coming from the integrated location provider of the device itself. So here on my iPad, I've got an integrated GPS receiver, but I can also augment this with an external high accuracy GNSS receiver if needed as well. And I can manage that information here by clicking on our GPS accuracy. I can view kind of the status of our high accuracy receiver, the information we're getting from the satellites, and also switch our location provider if needed. So all that's kind of managed through Bluetooth. And as we collect those observation results, there'll be initially loaded here and stored on the device, but if we're connected, those will be synced at some type of specialized or specific interval. So you can see those 3 observations I made earlier have been added and synced and symbolized appropriately depending on the type of observation they were. But this all works offline as well. So if we're disconnected for some reason, we can still capture all this information. It'll just be stored kind of locally here on our device. And then once we regain connectivity, we can sync all that information up. So back in the office, I'll show you kind of how this quick capture project was created. So there's an associated quick capture web designer, which is just a web application that you can access through your enterprise portal or ArcGIS Online organization. And I can come in here and see the same construction observation project that we were just working with on the mobile side. If I click this project, I can see that same layout that I saw within the mobile app as well. And so this interface is really where you configure the layout of your project. If I was starting from scratch, I may come in here and add an initial button. Once I add that button, I can source that particular button to a specific feature layer. So in this case, I've got 2 feature layers, one that's capturing and storing information about those environmental hazards, one storing information about my safety hazards. I would just map it to the appropriate layer. And then if we go to one of these existing buttons, we can see once we do that, we've got all of the fields come in through that layer. So in this particular layer, I've got 3 different fields. I've got this hazard type, which is storing the type of hazard, and that is essentially just a coded value domain. I can come in here and specify which of those values in that domain that button will correspond to. And then I can also configure things like user input. So if I want the user on the field to be able to capture additional comments or notes along with their observation, I can configure that. And then we can also configure the ability to take a photo or a picture along with that observation. So when a user clicks that button, they'll be prompted to take a picture if they want, or they can skip that, or they can just have the camera kind of automatically open and snap a quick picture before moving on. So quick capture is all about this idea of rapid data collection at speed. So as you're driving along, or if you're walking, you don't have to stop and fill out a detailed form or fill out a bunch of attributes. Real quick, the appearance of these buttons can also be configured, right? So I can assign a label. I can even add in an image if I want to show that here on the button, and I can control the size, shape, and the color of the button as well. So once we've got our project ready to go, we can save our project out, and that just saves it as an item within your portal or ArcGIS Online organization. And then I can share it out to the appropriate parties. So if I have a group that's got all of my field workers added to it, I can simply share this quick capture project to that group, and then they would have access to download it onto their mobile device and then start collecting information. So here in a map, back in ArcGIS Online, I can see kind of an overview map of all of our construction information. So I see some of that information coming in from quick capture. I can see the solar panels and those features added from AutoCAD and modified by my GIS team. And really what we want to do is be able to track these different panels through the progress of construction and through installation, so we can accurately track the progress of how our project is moving along. And to do that, we might use something like Collector to update that information out in the field. So if I go back to my mobile device here and open up our Collector application, I can see that same map that I was just looking at in our desktop application. There's my uploaded information that I got from CAD. There's my features that I just collected there within quick capture. So we're all tied to that authoritative information here. And what I also see are these little red dots. So those red dots represent essentially the as-built survey locations for each of our panels. So as these panels get installed, maybe we go out and we capture the location or the corners of each of these installed panels, so we have that as-built survey coordinate that we can then use to rectify with our plan design. And so that information could be captured in Collector using some of our high accuracy data collection capabilities. And really what we want to be able to do is give the people in the field the tools that allow them to capture this information. So for any case, maybe this proposed panel location had to get moved for some reason. Maybe there was an issue, maybe some type of soil erosion or runoff issue, and this planned location had to get shifted maybe a meter or two over from where it was originally planned to be installed. So we can capture that new point location of that corner of that installed panel here using our current location. So as I said, Collector supports high accuracy receivers just like Quick Capture does. And right now I'm using just the integrated receiver of my device. So I see this message up here that I'm outside of my required accuracy threshold, but I could update that and get a much finer grain coordinate or accuracy if I'm using one of those external GNSS receivers that I've paired with this app. For now, I'll just pretend like I've got that dialed in location here using the location of my device, and I want to just capture a new as-built survey point. So I can go ahead and do that here by collecting or clicking this button. Maybe for some reason it's not working. There we go. I can go ahead and use the poor location of my device, but that would say you've got, your accuracy is X, your required accuracy is Y. And so once we've got that location, there might be attributes that you could associate with that particular feature. But once we've captured the corner, right, we can go ahead and submit this this particular feature. And I would go about collecting all of the features, much like I've done over here with this panel next to it. I would capture the other three corners of the installed panel or array. Once I've got that data collected, I might want to update the status of this panel, right? I could come in here and I see an attribute. We've got that status attribute. Maybe I want to change that. If it's staked or if it's surveyed, I can denote that updated information here from out in the field, and I can also submit that. So same thing as Quick Capture. This works both online and offline. If I'm offline, these results will just be saved locally until I regain connectivity. So back in the office, if I'm a GIS professional, I can open up Pro, go back to my 2D map, and I can turn on all of those survey points that have been collected by my surveyors or my field crew out in the office. Now I come in here, I can see that point that just got added here from Collector. So we've got that kind of real-time collaboration between the office and the field. And if I've got 4 of these points that are offset from this planned location, I may need to update this location, the location of this feature here within my my GIS. So I can come in here and using some of the just out-of-the-box editing tools within Pro. Maybe I want to edit the vertices of this particular feature to get it to snap to those as-built locations, right? So I can come in here and just snap that to that new vertex, and then if I had the other 4 points in here, then I could update the location of that particular feature accordingly and have that be our kind of as-built design. For now, I'll just go ahead and cancel out these edits. And actually, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and move this entire feature. Just pretend like we've set to our coordinates. Sorry, my Pro application's a little slow today. We can get this thing, there we go. We can go ahead and move it. We can just shift it over, pretend like we snapped it there. And we're good to go. So now this edit has been made to that feature layer directly, right? So depending on our settings in Pro, we may need to go and commit those changes to that feature layer. So everyone else that is connected to that layer can see those changes as well. And now we're ready to reconcile our kind of as-built data with that planned data back in CAD as well. So if I come down here and open up AutoCAD one last time, I can see my initial plan. But what I want to do is bring in that as-built survey data coming from the field. So I can open up my Add Data button one last time, and I can search for my as-built point layers. Again, I can scroll over to my groups or my organization if I don't own this layer, and I can go ahead and drop this into CAD. Now I can see all of the locations of those as-built points, that one that we just looked at, but my plan design is still not reflecting the the as-built design that we just, that modification that we just made in Pro. So to do that, I need to come in here and synchronize this, this layer again to get those changes over from ArcGIS Online. So if I do that real quick, we can see now that feature is shifted, and we see those modifications and those updates that have been made. So again, we have that ability to really streamline the process of moving data between the ArcGIS platform and the AutoCAD platform, and really remove a lot of those barriers that were there before of having to import or export data into different formats and then dealing with all of that siloed information. So to wrap up here, if I go back to my browser, we can look at a dashboard that's been created for all of the people back in the office to provide kind of a real-time view of our operations. So again, if I update this, I can see all of those changes that I just made, both in CAD and Pro and out in the field using our mobile apps. And a foreman or a construction supervisor that's using this dashboard can easily track these activities and the overall status of our project. So again, depending on the status of our attributes here, we can generate something like a total count of our as-built surveys. So we can see we've got about 15 here out of our 24. From that, we can get a good progress meter that tells us how we've progressed, how much we still have left to go on our project. We can identify specific panel locations and see information about those. So we can see which ones have been staked, which ones are surveyed, maybe which ones are still in the planning phase. And then using the information associated with these features, we can generate metrics that show us from a capacity standpoint, we've got about 112.5 kilowatts installed out of the 180 total that this new phase is going to provide to us. And so the implications to our overall project, if we zoom out and look at all of our solar panels in this project, right now our online capacity is about 1,084, but when complete, if we add this 180, we're going to have about 13 kilowatts. So we can track how much capacity we're adding to our overall project when that comes online, and be able to have a much clearer picture of that information. Similarly, we can bring in that data coming out from Quick Capture, and we can easily see where issues have been reported. And this allows decision makers to understand where those locations are, evaluate their impact, and really take a course of action to remediate those issues. So in this case, I can see those 3 observations that I collected just a minute ago, but we also have some of these other observations that may have been collected previously. And using the information we specified in that Quick Capture Designer, we can actually open up some of these or zoom to some of these locations and see all of the information captured from our users out in the field. So I can see exactly what type of hazard this was, user comment that was made while out in the field, and I can even see a picture that was snapped, so I get a real understanding of what that issue looks like. So this might be a slip, trip, fall issue. We could also have an electrocution risk. In this case, I've got an exposed wire coming from an inverter box. I could also have some environmental hazards. In this case, I've got a damaged silt fence, so I understand kind of what that damage looks like. And I've also got some soil erosion occurring over here. So this really gives all of our kind of construction foremen or supervisors, or really anyone in the organization, the ability to review this information very efficiently and take the correct course of action. So all of the information kind of in this one location provides a common operating picture that can really improve the efficiency of these field crews. And so using kind of in summary and using all of these tools in the ArcGIS platform, and then using the integration with the AutoCAD platform, we can really streamline the design, planning, and construction phases of our renewable energy projects. So Alessandra, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I'm always amazed what you can accomplish with our software. And I used to do a lot of field work myself, so especially having all those health and safety things readily available for anyone on the team to access is huge. So I did this in our last webinar. I'm going to keep doing it moving forward. So if you liked anything you saw today, this is definitely the screen you want to pay attention to. Feel free to screenshot this, put it on LinkedIn, show your boss that you're working today, or like we said earlier, this session has been recorded, so you can watch this as many times as your heart desires. So today in our webinar, Scott showed us how to streamline the design and construction of renewable energy projects. So really taking that site suitability analysis and moving it to the next step forward in design and construction. He maximized every single square foot of that area of interest for our solar portfolio. He really unlocked the power of GIS directly inside Autodesk products and then brought that BIM data back to the ArcGIS projects and really utilized instant access to construction progress and issues from the field, not just for engineers to be aware of, but in that dashboard we saw last for project managers or management to understand what is going on with our project out in the field. So I have some really great news. The best part is that you can actually download and use the ArcGIS for AutoCAD plugin today for free. I would say you could walk down to your engineer's office, but that's probably not possible right now. So feel free to send them an IM or email, or maybe even a link to this webinar when it's available. And I promise you, both of your lives will be made much easier since everyone has access to the control of that authoritative information they're in charge of to enable that efficient collaboration. So we are always looking for workflows, tips, and tricks to improve the work you do every single day. And I definitely know that what we showed you today will do just that. So as always, Scott and I are your account team at Esri for renewables. Feel free to reach out to us if you need any assistance implementing these workflows with your Esri products. And with that, I think we will get to questions.
Yeah, we've got a couple of good ones that came in during the session. So Scott, back to you on the first question. Is we kind of went over a little bit, but can we talk about how we actually got the GIS information to line up with the design in CAD, specifically how we define that coordinate system inside the CAD interface?
Sure. So obviously when we bring in that GIS content, it's got a spatial reference associated with it. So that's going to line up where it's actually placed in the real world. And a lot of times those CAD models that we create are kind of in an undefined coordinate system or undefined space. So we can use some of the tools in CAD to scale and insert those features that are those models that we create, those drawing models, to the right locations. So what I had done kind of on the back end, and what I didn't show today, was I had taken that model that we looked at in that first drawing, and I had brought it over into the drawing that was geo-referenced, and I scaled it to the appropriate size, and then inserted it at that location that I specified using my cursor. So obviously I'm not a big AutoCAD user, so I don't know a lot of the kind of ins and outs of the details, but there are tools kind of built in with AutoCAD that allow you to modify the scale, the size, and the location of those drawings that you create.
And I think in that specific example, we defined the coordinate system to be state plane for that survey, which allowed us to line it up as well. So in that AutoCAD plugin, there's a way to kind of specify what coordinate system your drawing is in, and that
Right.
would then link back to the underlying feature services. Another question that came in, and maybe Scott, you can field this one as well. What are the advantages of using quick capture over collector?
Sure, that's a good question. So as most of you know, we have a variety of data collection applications, and they're all a little different. And it really comes down to the user experience that you're looking to deliver. So collector is a very map-centric experience. I've got that map kind of in the forefront, and I've got this ability to create features either by locating a location on the map or using my current location, then I have the ability to kind of look at all of the attributes and modify the attributes. So collector is really good for creating new features and editing existing features. Quick capture, on the other hand, is really about simplistic data collection, and it's really powerful for observational based data. So information that I want to capture that's just, hey, this type of thing is located in this location, and that's really it, then quick capture is a great tool to do that. So in the example I showed, where we just want to denote the location of potential hazards or issues, then maybe quick capture is a great tool for that, because we just want to quickly say, we've got this type of issue at this location, and we don't necessarily want to fill out a bunch of detailed information about that. What we could do is use quick capture to initially capture that information and then go back, and if we need to collect more information or do more of an assessment, maybe we would use quick capture or collector or maybe survey123 to do that kind of secondary follow-up. But it really comes down to the user experience that you're looking to deliver. If it's map-centric, collector is a great option. If it's form-centric, survey123. And then if it's kind of observational based or kind of rapid data collection, then quick capture is your best bet.
Cool, thanks, Scott. And just to kind of put a point on it, Scott, all the things that we saw today, the collector, the quick capture, the dashboard, and the AutoCAD integration, you just basically used all out of the box stuff, right?
Yep, out of the box. There was no customization. It was just a matter of configuring, the project for quick capture, configuring my map for collector, configuring the dashboard. So there's no customization or coding required.
Cool. And then we have a bunch of questions about versions of AutoCAD and the different kind of flavors of the AutoCAD products like Revit and Civil 3D and AutoCAD Lite, and what plays well with our plugins and what plays well with ArcGIS Pro. And so instead of going through those individually, I think we've got some FAQs from the product team that we're going to go ahead and include in the follow-up after the webinar. That'll give you the links to show you exactly what versions are supported on both sides and where we are with the integration with each of those individual Autodesk products as we move forward. We've been working on this probably about 18 months to 2 years now. So with every release, we've got more and more capabilities to link between the systems, and it's very exciting. I think that does it for all the active questions.
Yeah, I think we did get one more question about where the previous webinar is located. So we will send that information out along with the FAQs for this one. You're welcome to watch both. The ones we continue to do throughout the year, we're going through the renewable energy life cycle. So telling the whole story about how your Esri products fit into that. So I think with that, look for our email. This webinar should be available by early next week, the latest. And as always, feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. But thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks, Alessandra. Great job.